Alright, the Lakers have a problem. In fact, they actually have a couple of them. You know, it doesn't really show up against the bad to even solid and even fairly good teams, but it does show up against the really good teams, like the OKC Thunder last night, who obviously took advantage of them in their blowout victory over the LA Lakers. Of the problems I'd point to, number one, I'd point to their fast break ability and their rim penetration ability. Up until this point, the Lakers are bottom 3 in the NBA in fast break points per game, only scoring 11.8 of them per game. On top of that, they don't get to the rim very much. Of the entire NBA, they are 9th worst at drives per game, only driving to the rim 43 times per game. And although they're very efficient once they get there, finishing at a 58.6% clip, which is actually number 1 in the entire NBA, they simply don't have the ability to get there right now. The good news here is that they actually have a guy that will fix that for them, an athletic ability problem that likely will be mitigated at the very least by the return of LeBron, who is expected to come back early next week, likely in their first home game back against the Utah Jazz on November 18th. But even apart from that problem, even if LeBron does alone fix that problem, they have a few other ones too. On top of that, they are not a good 3-point shooting team. At this point, they are bottom 10 in 3-point shots made per game, 3-point shots attempted per game, and 3-point percentage. Obviously not too good. And even with the return of LeBron, let alone a poor 3-point shooter like Adu Thero, an average one like Gabe Vincent, that's not going to fix their problem. Even if their team does kind of level out to the norm, I think at this point they've shot below expectations and below what they should be shooting at. Even if they do eventually get to that point, they're not going to be a great 3-point shooting team. Then for kind of the final nail in the coffin, they're not very athletic defensively. I think they have good individual defenders, even good team defenders like Marcus Smart, Jared Vanderbilt, even DeAndre Ayton at times too, but they're not a great defense all around. They don't have very athletic, switchable defenders that can really go above and beyond for their team, much like the OKC Thunder have and obviously showed last night, whether it be their backcourt defenders like Case and Wallace, Lou Dort who didn't even play last night, Lakers legend Alex Caruso, or for their wing defense, J-Dub who didn't play last night, even Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's a very good wing defender, Lou Dort again who didn't play, even more after that point, or the rim defense like Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein. They have a true 3-level defense with plenty of athletic, switchable defenders, something the Lakers don't have very much of. And yes, again, they have a few good individual defenders, also a few good individual 3-point shooters, but they have very little, if any, that can do both, aka two-way ability. Something that I've been harping on for literal years now at this point. The Lakers have very little two-way ability. I mean, if you point to their roster, you can maybe point to a few two-way players, quote-unquote, and at the absolute most 2 or 3. I mean, pointing to guys like Rui Hachimura, for example, great offensively, very efficient, but not great defensively. Even a guy like Jared Vanderbilt, elite defensively at times, but very poor and actually a liability offensively at times. Or for Marcus Smart, great defensively, decent playmaker offensively, but not a good 3-point shooter, isn't a true 3-and-D option and not even a true 2-way option at times. And pretty much the entirety of the roster, either very good offensively or defensively, but not both. And that's obviously a problem in the modern NBA. To win at the highest level and to beat every team and to be a versatile team, you need two-way talent. And again, they have very little of it. So in my opinion, I'd point to that as their biggest problem right now, holding them back from that true top tier of the Western Conference or the entire NBA at that. If they want to get to that point and if they want to get to where they're above right now, you know, maybe a second tier team and a pretty good one, then they gotta add more two-way talent and obviously get healthy too. Addressing all three of their problems of rim penetration / fast break ability, their individual defensive ability, switchable athletic defenders, and 3-point shooting, that's gotta be addressed in at least 2 or 3 of the problems. So again, with that in mind here, how do they do that? Is there ability for them to do that internally? Like I said, maybe one part of it with the fast break and rim penetration ability when LeBron does come back, even maybe Adu Thero to a much lesser degree, but they don't have the ability to address all 3 needs internally. So in my opinion, a trade will have to come eventually, likely for a big wing that can be a true 2-way talent for them, at least a 3-and-D talent, a guy that can be an above average defender, ideally an athletic switchable defender, somebody that can switch 1 through 3 and possibly even 1 through 4, and on top of that is a reliable 3-point shooter. So again, that's what I think they need, and it might be a possibility to find it on the trade market. At this point, a number of teams are realizing that they are not good. It took between 10 to 15 games to figure it out and really accept it, but I think they've come to that realization. Pointing to teams like the Sacramento Kings, who reports say they're already trying to make trades and are pretty fine with blowing their team up. A team like the Dallas Mavericks, who are pretty much imploding from within, firing general manager Nico Harrison. Reports say they might even trade Anthony Davis, and no, the Lakers cannot currently trade for him, but they're another team to point to. Or all the way down to the New Orleans Pelicans, pretty much cursed at this point. I wouldn't be shocked if they would look to sell off their team, maybe a team like the Utah Jazz to go with them, or pointing to the Eastern Conference, anyone to the Toronto Raptors, Charlotte Hornets, Brooklyn Nets, Indiana Pacers, all the way down to the Washington Wizards. I think we have between 5 to maybe 8 teams that could make a trade at this point. But keep in mind that because we are nearly 3 months prior to the trade deadline, it's going to take a higher price to get them right now than it would at the trade deadline. Though regardless, I think it might be a possibility if you trade with the right team and try to make a trade for the right player. So with that in mind, let's go through a few examples of trades I think would be worth making, and a trade that they might be able to make in the short-term future that could help 2 or possibly all 3 or more of their needs that they currently have right now. So without further ado, beginning with trade number 1, I'd definitely take a look and call up the Sacramento Kings. Like I said, they're not good and I think they realize it too. Currently having a record of 3-9 at this point, having veterans like DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Domantas Sabonis, even Russell Westbrook, they're going nowhere, and I think they know it too. And while I wouldn't call him a veteran, a guy that's coming off their bench behind guys like Westbrook, LaVine, and DeMar DeRozan, a guy they're definitely underutilizing, and is in a contract year, so therefore they will have to pay him after this season, which up until this point they've shown no indication that they want to, is Keon Ellis. A 6'6", 24-year-old that's really shown a lot of ability on both ends of the court. Up until this point, he's a near 40% 3-point shooter. On top of that, he's a very good defender in my opinion. Able to switch 1 through 3 on the court, is switchable on defense, is athletic, is a defensive playmaker, is averaging 1.3 steals per game in only 19 minutes per game this season, that translating to well over 2 of them per game, nearly 3 of them per 36 minutes. So yeah, I definitely point to him as a two-way talent, a guy that should be playing more for their team but again currently isn't, so he might be available for the right price, which would be a pretty hefty price, but again, given the fact that he's in a contract year, and knowing that you'd have to pay him to retain him after this season, it might help the price for him a little bit if Sacramento is willing to deal him. So I definitely call him up and offer a trade package around Dalton Connect, and probably 2 future first-round draft pick swaps to go with it. No, not their final tradable first-round draft pick, that being in 2031, but some first-round draft pick swaps, still pretty valuable but not quite up to that level, and I think this might be able to get done, or at least get the talks started between them and get the negotiation going for Keon Ellis, who again, I definitely would try and make a trade for. Like I said, only 24, actually 25 years old, let me correct that. On top of that, great 3-point shooter, good defender, athletic switchable defender. I'd definitely try to trade for him if Sacramento is willing to deal him. So that would be example number 1, a very good one in my opinion, and a player that I would try to make a trade for, but that's not the only one. On top of that, I'd head to a team like the Toronto Raptors, who are playing a little bit better than Sacramento, currently having a record of 6-5, but with their current payroll and with them being right above that first apron, pushing the second apron with a pretty mid team in my opinion, I think they'd be willing to trade a guy that's under a contract year, like Ochai Agbaji, who is surprisingly not playing very much for them. Up until this point, he's only playing 13.9 minutes per game, which in comparison to last season at 27.2 minutes per game, not only that, but averaging 10.4 points per game last season, on a very impressive 39.9% 3-point shooting. Now that's trended all the way down to 14 minutes per game, 2.7 points per game, only 8% from the 3-point line. From a combination of sporadic playing time and them obviously not believing in him, possibly even trying to devalue him so they can pay him less, or maybe try and trade him, I really don't get that part with it. And he is currently trying to play through injury too, so don't leave that out. But overall, they obviously don't value him that much, aren't looking at him as part of their long-term future, and currently favor guys ahead of him that probably shouldn't be playing more, but are getting more playing time than him. So again, in a contract year that might help the value for him through a trade, which could possibly be allowed to trade like Gabe Vincent, and 2 future first-round draft pick swaps to get Ochai Agbaji. Again, not playing well right now, but he showed more than enough last season to where he can be a very good role player, a guy that's a good 3-point shooter, even a great 3-point shooter, a very good athletic switchable defender, capable of matching up with point guards, shooting guards, all the way down to small forwards and even smaller power forwards too. I definitely have interest in Ochai Agbaji. Only 25 years old to go with it, so could be a part of the long-term future. I would definitely look into this kind of trade. However, if you don't think that's enough and want to go for more of a home run trade target, quote unquote, then maybe try to head to a team like the New Orleans Pelicans, who again are currently imploding from within, having a 2-9 record, on the verge of firing their head coach, trade rumors swirling around Zion Williamson and pretty much every other player on their team apart from maybe Trey Murphy III, but that's it. Maybe try to trade with them and trade for a guy like Herb Jones, possibly the best 3-and-D target on the entire trade market if he would be available. And despite them signing him to a new contract, signing him to a 4-year contract that's very undervalued in my opinion, I think they might be willing to trade him for the right price. The problem is getting to that price. You know, for a trade example, it definitely would take a first-round draft pick, at least. The Lakers only have one tradable first-round draft pick, again being in 2031, so maybe offering that completely unprotected, maybe 2 future first-round draft pick swaps with it, and a young player like Dalton Knecht who still definitely does have potential, maybe on the right team and in a different situation that potential could be unlocked, then some salary filler like Gabe Vincent or Maxi Kleber. Maybe they think about it and maybe they accept this trade for Herb Jones. In my opinion, this would probably be the best trade they could currently make, a trade that could benefit both their short-term and long-term future all in one, a guy that could address 2 or possibly all 3 or maybe more of their needs if you think they have more, a very good 3-point shooter, currently shooting 44% from the 3-point line on 4.4 attempts per game, also a pretty good rim penetration guy, obviously not to a LeBron level but is an athletic player, and that does translate to defense too. Herb Jones being one of, if not a top 3 defender and wing defender in the entire NBA, is a former first-team All-Defender back in 2024, currently averaging over 10 points per game to go with it, on the very efficient 3-point shooting like I said, averaging 1.4 steals per game in roughly 30 minutes per game. You know, no matter what way you look at it, I think he'd be a great fit for their team. Is only 27 years old, 6'8", can defend 1 through 4 on the court, great 3-point shooter, great off-ball player, athletic player. So it really all comes down to the price for him and if the Pelicans would trade him, which is kind of up in the air at this point. Again, I think the only untradeable player quote-unquote on their team likely will be Trey Murphy, even if that, but think Herb Jones wouldn't be far off that point. Definitely would take a hefty price to get him, definitely would take at least 1 first-round draft pick, likely the equivalent to another first-round draft pick, and possibly a bit more to get him. So if you think that'll be worth it, then maybe try and trade for him and maybe push for that trade. But I think if they even would trade him, it would likely come all the way down to the trade deadline, so they can have a bidding war for him. But with all of that being said, that's what I'd be looking at here if I'm the Lakers. Targeting legitimate 2-way talent, guys that can be good athletic switchable defenders, good 3-point shooters, even can fit their long-term timeline and simply would be addressing their team and their biggest needs on the team. That's what I'd be looking at here. Again, examples like Keon, Ellis, Ochai Agbaji, all the way down to a bigger trade target like Herb Jones. That's the kind of player I'd be looking for and maybe thinking about making a trade for right now. But with that in mind, what do you guys think? Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? What other needs would you maybe point to on their team, and maybe what trade targets would you point to as well? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But I think that'll pretty much do it for this one, and if you enjoyed the video, then I'll greatly appreciate it if you dropped a like, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and hit that notification bell to never miss out when I upload a video. But as always, thank you for watching, and have a great day or night